Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. If we don't get blown into the parking lot shortly. It's howling out there. If anyone's recording, they make it known. Who's whistling? We have 3 members present this evening, which is a quorum. I expect, is Emmanuel going to be around? I know Mark
It's
wasn't.
not gonna be this one.
Hmm?
It'll be the next meeting, March 11th.
So I guess we're it. First item of business are the meeting minutes of January 28th. The only thing that I noticed was on page 3, third paragraph, when asked what the material of the building is, I think he was referring to the addition, not the entire building, so. So just put, states the new building is steel.
George, the minutes of the 28th, you're gonna have to put them aside till Emmanuel shows up, because I can't vote on that. I
Wait.
think two members constitute a quorum.
Well, you can as far as
There's a quorum.
it's a
here.
majority, those present eligible to vote. I don't think Emmanuel was gonna be here tonight, so.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him, so I can't tell.
No, he said last time he was not going to attend tonight. You're gonna have to make a motion, Mike.
Oh, I thought they were still reading.
Oh, I was reading something else. I looked over and you were reading.
Oh, sorry. I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes of January 28th as presented, with the one edit on page 3 noted by George to insert the word "new," so that the line reads, "Mr. Pitt state that the new building is steel."
I'll second that. Any discussion? It's the 25th. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And the minutes of February 11th, which I will be abstaining from.
As will I.
Yep, okay, we can't act on that. Unless you want to plus it, Mike, please. Wrong one. Next is an approval not required plan for 3 Tow Road.
You got 2 there.
Evening?
Evening. Jeff Youngquist from Outback Engineering. Basically, we're just cutting that parcel off and adjoining it to Steel Fielding's parcel, which to the north. That's all the area behind his fence there that he's not using.
This is the old, what they call the old state road. Access is that. This is the restaurant. There's no problem there because they have access through there. This is Fielding property here.
This is what you see on the road when you drive by.
Entertain a motion to endorse.
Sure. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
You can put them under one rubber band if you want.
We got more than one?
This is the next one, too. This is submittal verification.
Next, we have an approval not required plan for Lawrence Hill, Minot Avenue. Just bundle them all up into one.
That's it, Jeff Youngquist, Outback Engineering. This is a further subdivision plan signed in 07/17.
Is this the one that we're gonna put a couple of duplexes on at one time, or they talked about it?
Exactly what they're gonna do.
Across from Brandy Hill.
And what have we changed?
Lot lines,
This is what we have here.
these were the lot lines before. That's the 2017 plan. And basically, when the lot line comes like this, what we've done is create 200 feet of frontage. For this lot, this will be duplex, duplex, and the remaining land stays with this lot. And this lot doesn't change. This one that's got that long, whatever, remaining land on the other side.
Could you flip that back again to the, thanks.
This is an old easement. This used to be by Enstar, Eversource. Had this coming through here. We made a deal with them. They had put their poles over here without an easement, so we transferred the easement from here to here, and they give up the rights to these. This transferred it to Mr. Hill. And there, this lot line is shown in the dashed line. Only took 4 years to do that.
So you picked up another lot in the process, is that what I'm seeing?
We created another lot. There was 2 lots, and now there's 3.
Those are the two new ones.
Didn't do it before because there'd been an easement running through the middle of it.
That's exactly it. Couldn't
To
build
me,
on it with that easement running through it.
entertain a motion to endorse.
Second?
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed?
Cleared that 2 weeks ago. I think they just cleared that property 2 weeks ago.
Next item is an initial review for Annie Hayes.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Barch I'm a volunteer board member for the Wareham Land Trust, and I'm here with Annie Hayes, who's the owner of the subject property. Her property is on Farmers Lane, which is off the county road, and it's north of Faring Hill Road. It's adjacent to the Westgate Conservation Area and to the Faring Hill Conservation Area. Right now, she has one lot, which has her home, plus 2 buildable lots. She approached us about a year ago and asked us for some conservation options, and we've been working with her. And we've come up with some ideas, which we were going to show you tonight. But before we do that, I just wanted to let Annie tell you why she's interested in conservation very briefly.
I found the old Eddie and Shelby Florindo farm on Craigslist, and it was a very happy day. When I saw it, I fell in love with it and felt like I'd gotten a home. And I want it to be just the way it is. It has beautiful meadow, and it has woodlands and vernal pools, and it's deer track everywhere. It's just a really special place. So I don't want to build on it, and I don't want anybody else to build on it. But I have a son. I live alone there, but I have one son. He's in Montana, and I'm not quite sure which direction he's heading. But one of the first things I did was to call the building commissioner to see if I could build a guest house or a small dwelling. He's a minimalist kind of guy. And what I learned was that it's a variable situation. If I had a handicapping hardship condition, it's possible I could do that on my lot, but it varies and it's not written in stone. So I felt that perhaps the best thing to do was to make sure that I did have accommodation for him to build a small space if he wanted to come to the land. But Kevin will say in a bit, I think that's not my intent to build. I don't want to build. I don't want to have a lot to sell to somebody to build.
So this is what we've come up with. I don't know if you can see it well from there, but here's the current configuration of 3 lots. Again, it's on a private road. There's a lot of wetlands, and what's in ground here are important agricultural soils, prime farmland soils. The other thing that's unique about this property is the upland grasslands, which we don't see a lot of anymore in Wareham. So it's a very special place, being adjacent to other conservation areas and having grasslands. So what we've done is we've configured a two buildable lot scenario with most of the 16 acres going to conservation. So 13 acres out of the 16 would have a conservation restriction on it. And then the zoning allows for a 1.5 acre housing lot, so the existing house would be 1 lot, and then the second lot would be down on the road a little bit, away from the wetlands, and minimizing the use of the agricultural soils. So this maximizes the conservation value of the property. And we wanted to give you a premiere of what the intention was before Annie outlays a great deal of money for an A&R survey. So basically, we're looking for your opinion this evening to hope that we can move forward on this. the structures that are on the existing developed land. There's a house and a barn and a shed. Out of development area.
Right. You know, when you say it's agricultural soils, 90% of that property up there is all glacial till.
Yeah, as with most of Wareham is.
No, not most of Wareham. Certain parts of Wareham, most of Wareham sand, that area is 90% glacial till. There's a subdivision further up here. Remember when that came before us quite a few years ago? A lot of the problems with, that's why it's all tall pines, it's real wet. Springtime, it's pretty soupy and swampy.
Yeah, I'm showing you wetlands is the blue shaded areas.
Yep.
Multifamily in R60.
R60 is correct.
Getting two buildings going on. The blue area is the wetland, is the white buffer.
No, white was just white space.
Snow.
Mr. Chairman, George, duplexes aren't allowed in the R60. Duplexes are not allowed in the R60, only single family.
And I think the glitch they were probably referring to was two houses on one lot, rather than, is that the glitch in the bylaw?
Well, that, but also it says that you can't have a two-family house either.
Not doing that. No. It's mutual. Highlighted your road there, but I'm getting to it. We've got our flannel shirts on.
It would have to act as access under the subdivision control act.
I look at it for face value, and where's the downside?
I don't see a problem with it. See that it conforms.
Looks like they've laid the lot out so that it conforms for a home. And they have access. And you're effectively making another lot off the market by the configuration.
The only road I can see is emergency access. If the road's of sufficient width and grade, it's basically gonna be a driveway.
Yeah.
And what will make that road any different?
No, Square Island is quite wide.
Well,
I don't know what the condition is.
Just to remind you that Annie's retaining the right to build on the second lot just for financial security. Ultimately, it may go into conservation. And if it were to be improved, then perhaps the road would need to be improved with it.
Is there any rights retained to the old ancient, I want to call it ancient way, the road that used to go down to Fairfield Road?
We don't know that for sure, but personally, I suspect that there could be, but that's town-owned property, so I don't know exactly how that works.
I can't remember that. I don't think that rescinded. Because initially, there was supposed to be a big subdivision.
Was it an ancient way?
Oh, the road probably was there 100 years.
Yeah.
The cart path.
I remember this when they cut the trees.
Well, the thing is, people live on the other side, when they have rights to pass and repass. We do that quite a bit. If you don't know the history of the land, a lot of times something will get chopped up. Next thing you know, where there was a place where somebody had rights to pass across, there's a house across there, whatever, where somebody meets once and says, hey, this is my property, you're not crossing it. And it creates a problem for a lot of people. Yeah, I think that's a better solution. Now, your intentions is for your son to build on lot 2?
If he chooses to build, yes.
What's the description of the road that's there now?
The description of it,
Yeah, is it
it's,
unimproved?
I think
it's pretty
that's
open,
not the
actually.
path.
You can see part of it.
That's not it.
It's open, it's probably about 16 feet wide, it's drivable.
And there's land on both sides, so that if it needed to be wider, it could be.
Yeah, there's plenty of room to make it wider. And it's dry, too.
But generally in this situation, because you've got other, what we would request is compacted gravel, minimum of 16 feet wide, so.
Could that be a condition should that property ever be developed?
Well, you're creating a lot as a Form A, you can't condition that.
So the improvement would have to be made prior to the lot being created? It seems kind of restrictive to ask somebody to improve the road on a lot that may be built on.
Well, the thing is, once it becomes a lot, if they can go on the open market, could be somebody else that, you know, we can look at both sides of it.
Well, I would say at this point, when you come in with your A and R, you demonstrate that that road is sufficient.
Okay.
Sufficient in what, excuse me, in what way?
Width and construction.
So that the gravel would have to be laid down? It would just change the nature of the place so much. And if I needed to do it because there was going to be a house there, I would do it, but
Well, yeah, that would be,
it's just,
that would be the,
I want to be clear on that, what you're saying.
well, your approval would read that that's to be of sufficient width and grade, but you really can't do that with an A and R.
You have to make a finding that it's appropriate as it is.
It's got to stand in its own merit.
Right, now, this is something that they can, get some basis for the width and construction based on precedent.
What do you see, 6 inches of compacted gravel or 12?
Regulations say 12. You could waive that if it was made out of reclaimed material. You could reduce that depth somewhat. But if it's standard gravel, it's 2 layers, 6 inches deep.
Well, while we're here, my question right now is because of that potential condition, what is the hardship clause? I mean, is there something that's firmer than what I got from the building commissioner?
A hardship is a finding of 4 different aspects of the condition of the property, and it runs with the land. And it says, because of those conditions, you can't do anything else but what you're intending to do.
Oh, so it doesn't sound like that applies, does it? I mean,
Only if you
if I gave everything but the one lot to conservation, I mean, then that,
I think we're talking 2 different hardships.
Yeah.
I think you're talking a construction hardship where you had to put an addition on your house or another building that was, say, handicap accessible. Where
Well,
a zoning hardship would be something that you couldn't overcome any other way, which I don't think this
I
would
see,
qualify.
okay, no, that's right. The hardship would be my getting older, which I really don't intend to do.
what's left of that roadway, of the picture, which,
Yeah, I actually don't, the photograph doesn't show the road.
so that strip of green is,
No, no.
That's
just
down
a
through the
mow line.
meadow.
Yeah.
A
that's just
meadow
mow
path.
line.
Almost seems like a visit to the road is in order.
where are you, actually, not quite.
Now, if there were two lots, I mean, could a road or a drive be changed, or does it need to stay on the ancient way?
Well, where you own the property, you could move it.
I could move it.
Yeah.
But-
Then that becomes,
Because there may be a shorter path
It's in her property.
and one,
it's gotta have frontage.
They could drive it on. The thing is, you have to have something there, so for firefighter, they come here. See, 89 at the top, because you can't condition it.
If you did it as a subdivision land and created,
Then you can waive it.
you could come down here. And then waive the road construction.
Then you can put conditions, 1 through 4 feet, you can construct it, 26, stuff like that. Then you put conditions, that's one thing.
are you talking about a rerouting of the road?
No,
No.
if you handle it as a two-lot subdivision, then you can put conditions, you can waive for this, you can waive for that.
I see.
You can put conditions with A and R, you can't put conditions on it, they don't stand up at all. You
Uh-huh.
can say, hey, we wanna see a 35-foot road, sidewalks, this and that. You can say, sure, no problem. It doesn't happen, because there's no teeth in A and R.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a subdivision, you have certain constraints you can vary and change around to make it work.
So from the perspective of what a surveyor needs to do, what's the difference between a subdivision and an A and R? Isn't it just a plan?
It's a document,
Okay.
it's another document that has to be, prepared.
Well, you'd have to show road construction for a subdivision roadway and then ask for a waiver of construction.
Oh,
What else?
okay.
What other requirements should be in the plan?
That's, you put to, I would recommend if they were going to go that route, that they do a preliminary sketch first, come in and show where the proposed road would go with their suggestions as to what the construction might be. Then you could use that as a basis for say, okay, go ahead with the subdivision, bring it in formally, we'll hold a public hearing and do it. But I'm just thinking about things and listening to what Mike first said, I think it would behoove you as the applicant, before you even consider any subdivision or any road construction or anything like that, would be if you know where that second lot was going to be, roughly, I would evaluate that soil first, because I agree 100% with Mike. That whole area in there is tough soil. The majority of what's in around, what's the name of that development there?
Windy Hill, not Windy.
No, it's not.
White pine.
White Pine Acres, all of that, especially the land to the rear, is very poorly drained. There's very high groundwater in there. So I would recommend that you engage somebody with a backhoe to do a couple of test pits that would be similar to what you might have to require for a septic system plan to go before the Board of Health. You could not get a building permit for that second lot without having a design septic system. You don't have to go that route, just get the information on the soils. You need to find good soils on that proposed lot. to satisfy yourself that you could get a building permit. And if the conditions of the soil are such that it just doesn't make any sense, that might help you to make a decision on whether or not you're going to have a second lot or not. It's critical, and I agree with Mike. My father's company back in the 1970s, early 1970s, did that subdivision. And over the years, I did several soil tests in there, so I'm quite familiar with the area. Also, the area that is out, well, it would be to the east of that quite a bit, and it would be headed toward where the old railroad tracks are. That's even worse. So I think it would behoove you to do a little bit of investigation first before you invest any money in any kind of a survey or a subdivision plan or anything else to see exactly what those conditions are. I think you'd be well served by doing that.
So is that really, I mean, is that a definitive first step that I would need to take?
No, you can do that on your own.
It's just a good suggestion before.
It's only a suggestion, and you could do that on your own without coming to the town to do anything. Just evaluate the soil, investigate the soil through an engineer who knows how to do it, and get the results of that so that you know that in the future, at least you've got the conditions that would support an on-site septic system, because there's no sewer out there, as you know.
Are you seeing that the water table is changing? With all
The water table in that area is typically high because of the type of soils that are there.
No, but I'm talking about in general, we're getting more precipitation.
It varies from year to year, but the actual groundwater conditions are going to be pretty much in the same range. And you can tell that from the soil profile as you dig down into it. There are certain aspects of soils that will tell you where the high groundwater table might be found. Whether or not it's there at the time you dig the holes is immaterial. You can still make that determination. But it's most important that you know that ahead of time, because if you go to all this trouble of doing a subdivision plan, paying the engineering cost for all of that work, and then find you don't have a buildable lot, you've wasted a lot of money.
Yeah, I appreciate that, thank you.
So let's get back to, is there an alternative that we can do to keep it as an A&R plan? If you guys come out and inspect the road, or if we show that the road is adequate?
Yeah, if you show it meets a standard that would satisfy public safety aspects as well as your own comfort getting on the property, then we could deem it suitable as frontage. So, sorry, a little far away from it. But Charlie's right in the fact that if you may find that the better soils are on the other side of the proposed driveway, and you might want that for the location. And if you do it this way and then put a CR on it, that's gonna make things difficult for you. It looks like you have more upland to the,
Well, yeah, but that is tucked away, and it's not going to disturb the wildlife. They have their certain paths and trails, and they're what I'm protecting.
they'll go right through your living room, they don't care.
Yeah.
Actually, that lot is on the upland side. The other side of the road is
Looks like
down.
it's closer to wet, so
Yeah,
It is closer to wet,
it is, but
it's almost
but it's
over
higher.
half of
It's
it is
higher.
snow covered.
yeah.
So,
Could you clarify the process for getting the road approved or inspected?
You do a survey of the property, submit an A&R.
Okay.
For a formal process. You submit a plan that meets the requirements for an approval not required, and then the official determination is made by the board as to whether or not it meets the criteria for access.
Okay.
I'm not clear on that, sorry. Are you talking about just the road part, or are you talking about the whole,
The whole thing.
the whole thing? So I have to go through that next step, the expense of the next step. Maybe the soil sample first, and then the expense of the whole step because of the road clearance or the road width?
The soil samples that you described is for your own benefit.
To be able to build there, right?
Is to know what you've got before you commit to anything. As far as an A&R goes, about the only decision we have is, area and frontage. And if that description of the roadway is not deemed suitable as frontage, then it's gonna be denied. You know, generally suitable for frontage, as you heard, is 12 inches of compacted gravel, at least 16 feet wide for a single-family home, is what we've allowed in the past. So I would, if we approved it without you building it, then I would say it'd be up to zoning enforcement to say you haven't built the road yet.
Well, he would ask whether or not the frontage has been, or the access to it has been approved by the planning board. Because during the endorsement, you're essentially saying you don't have any concerns in it. So what my suggestion would be if they do submit a Form A plan, then you have to go out and inspect it and look at it and see whether or not you feel the conditions are appropriate for that lot. If you say it is, then you endorse the plan. If it isn't, then you, as you suggested, George, you have to turn it down and then you go the subdivision route.
Are you getting all of this?
Yeah, some of it,
No?
yeah.
You better get all of it.
Can you come up to the mic if you're gonna ask a question?
Let me get my pen because we have to get the list.
I'm Nancy McHale, also a board member on the Wareham Land Trust. But I have a question about the ancient way. If that frontage is part of the ancient way, does that then still need to be brought up to code if it's being used just for a driveway?
They still have to make a determination that a subdivision of the land has proper access and frontage. And so they look at whether or not it's an ancient way. The ancient way provides rights of access, but not necessarily conditions that are appropriate to the subdivision of land.
If it's an ancient way, I agree, Ken, people might have rights to pass and repass. You might
That's
have
right.
to go with your horse and buggy,
Mhm.
as a friend of the olden days. But it doesn't stop you from passing. You know, you can walk across it, but you can't drive. When we're creating a lot, we look for, it has to be adequate so you can drive a vehicle on it safely. You know, you're not driving through a swamp or.
If this lot existed back before zoning, then we would have a different look at it, but where it's newly created.
Because at one
That's-
time, it was cows and everything else up there. You know, it was a farm.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Great. Thank you for the clarification.
This was bigger, was it? It's on the end of Old Stagecoach, right?
That was Frindle there, that went
Oh, for- yeah.
all the way through. Because when they were going through the subdivision here, it was so, the soil was so tough, they was going to put back a system in there. Remember that, Charlie?
What's that?
The subdivision on the lower part, Sherman Hill, by Cesar Montello's Park. Well, that's where it came in, that's where it came up, was by Cesar's Park.
Yeah, they were proposing one there, but it never went through because they never could find any decent soil in there. Yeah.
It's tight. The glacial till runs all the way to Rose Point.
Hmm.
That's where the glacier,
Cul-de-sac is that?
that was a proposal, that was never done. It was that subdivision that never
It doesn't drain? Okay.
How many
So-
acres of conservation land is there potential?
13 acres out of the 16.
Would the board be interested in going out and seeing what the access looks like?
That's been a long time since I've been out there.
It might simplify things.
Yeah.
There's no rabid dogs or no coyotes or.
Coyotes, yes.
Probably the worst thing you're gonna worry about is deer ticks. They're vicious.
So-
No objection to us doing a site visit and looking at the access? Or- I think the building's gonna blow over that way now.
Is this with the potential of having the access changed, or is this the old access?
The old access,
Yeah,
what's
the-
existing there.
Okay, so that would be the access. When I think about the access, I mean, it's beautiful just the way it is.
Mhm.
And you put a gravel road in it, and it changes the whole nature of the place.
That would be the reason for the site visit, to see if the road as it sits is acceptable.
Oh, as it sits is acceptable.
Sometimes the road could be overgrown, you know, you gotta cut some brush back or whatever.
Okay, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
understand that. Okay.
No, we just wanna see
So-
existing conditions.
There's gotta be some
Got it.
existing road that's there from before.
No,
Oh, there is,
Because the,
but it's all grass.
this is the railroad bed right here, and there's 3 other properties before her property. That's also a private road. So who would be responsible for improving that portion of the road if it's on their property?
Well, right now, that's traveled up to your house.
It's a road.
Oh, so it's just what
If it had to be improved, it would be the responsibility of the person who wanted to make the subdivision.
Okay. All the way back to where it needs to be improved.
Wherever it needs to be, yeah, the
Okay.
connecting road. Supreme Court case.
Now, where does the road stop and the driveway to the house, the speculative house begin? How long can a drive be? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Does my drive have to be the same size as the road
yeah.
in the second lot, maybe house?
If it's the road that's being used for creation of access to the creation of that new lot,
Just to,
it has to be all within the same.
but just to the edge of the lot? Where does it have to, the
It should provide frontage.
Yeah.
frontage?
It
Okay,
needs-
there's a
needs the
code then.
180
Okay,
feet,
the
yeah.
code for, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thanks. That's a lot.
So, you got a contact that we can arrange a site visit? You got all the contacts?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds like a good
all right,
next step.
thank you.
Well, thank you
Thanks for your time. Good night.
I hope it doesn't confuse you too much. I think it's time for some new equipment. We'll put it on the town meeting budget.
We're soft-spoken tonight. Is that better? Yes. Borrego Solar, where are we with that?
That's been, actually, it was continued to March 11th.
Okay, it's already in the book.
It was in the book. It was in the minutes.
Now we have a discussion of the bond release of the 53G money for Beaver Path.
Okay, before we go too far, how is the homeowners association?
That's part of the problem. If you cannot create the homeowners association.
The homeowners don't want to participate, and Mr. Deschamps was kind of bully us to pass it.
No, he's looking for his money, but if they sought street acceptance, would that eliminate the need for the HOA? Because they still
No,
have
because
drainage structures and...
There's storm drainage that's out the back of that is not in the street layout, and that was one of the conditions of the approval, that they maintain that, and also to set up the homeowners association in order to do it.
Mhm. don't know. Looks to me like he's,
How many
Yeah.
homes is that?
Hmm?
How many homes?
There's 1, 2 duplexes.
6?
The barn's not part of it. Barn's on Galt Road. 5. And there's a potential lot for 6. I think Paul Fender owns along back where the drainage easement is. It's almost back up. He's got a new legal building on Galt.
Yeah.
You know, is this road being plowed or anything by the town?
Mhm.
This is the subdivision road with the drainage, the large drainage easement area at the end of the cul-de-sac. And it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots. Okay.
See, you thought I was losing it, huh? I don't know.
So his position is that because nobody wants to play nice and actually have an HOA that functions, he wants out and he wants his money?
Yeah, I think what the issue is that who takes over the responsibility for the subdivision? He has $27,000 in, about 27, maybe about 28,000 in the bond right now. That is held there so he finishes the construction. I think if the homeowners association does not take over responsibility for maintenance, then we have to make some other entity responsible for the maintenance.
Will that be a developer?
And that would be the developer.
That's it. The first house was built on there. It was built, transferred, on one case been resold since. And they were never part of the the homeowners association was never created. The second lot, the one just up from it, I think they transferred that to somebody else and they built a house on it. And they still didn't have a homeowners association. So when he went knocking on doors, that's when everybody says, hey, what's this? You know, we never, that wasn't part of the deal when we bought in. And he just wants to cash and run. They're not happy with him. Bashan, the builder. I think we told him to go back to make peace with the people that lived in there and come up with something, but they're not on the same page.
How's Makepeace involved?
No, he meant make peace.
Oh, Makepeace.
Make peace.
As in make
Smoke the
nice.
peace pipe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make nice, not
So
make
I'm
peace.
going, how's Makepeace
Right
involved?
on Main Street, they can buy
Yeah,
a package and
right by the big sign.
they don't have to take the shuttle bus anymore. It's walk-in service.
So what I can do is, if you think it's appropriate, is ask the developer, in what way will he guarantee the maintenance, the long-term maintenance of the drainage in the subdivision road?
My feeling is,
Part of that drainage structure is on the land that's conveyed to somebody. Is all of it?
No, I think it splits up.
So, with the drainage easement, this is the drainage easement, and this is the end.
That is still.
And he sold this lot to Paul Ferindo. It was a
Repair of
contract, he finished most of the road.
Mhm.
And Bayshon, like I said, he got a strip that goes like this, and then he owns the big log.
There's an access.
This is Kenny's house up here, the house you're looking at. I said, your house,
Mhm.
up here.
There's no frontage there.
That big garage, because that brook goes like that.
That
That
just
garage
must
is
be
5
another
feet
parcel
tall.
of land outside of this
Couple of no
subdivision.
permits, out this frontage. put it
Yeah,
up.
that's the,
Right, well, it's yellow. That's all the thing used, construction debris. Hey, light it up, let it burn. My buddy used to live right here before. So he don't care. Let's go out the door.
It appears the drainage has been put on there.
Duplexes here. He said they were the majority of
Maybe additional land
the
up north.
association. The duplexes. I think one guy was his lawyer, somebody else was his friend, so since they own the property, they said they're the majority.
Tricky.
He's gotta go, he gotta make peace with the people in the place. We're not gonna give him any money back. You know,
you say, once he has his money, what-
we can't go on, we can't slander his character by saying he doesn't have a good track
Well-
record.
The bond is for road construction,
That's right.
and the road has been built and approved, and the drainage has been built and approved.
You know, we're supposed to have a homeowners association.
To maintain it.
When, you know, a developer comes in here and they tell us they wanna build a gated community, it's gonna be a private road and this and that, it all sounds good for selling points. Soon the last house is built, they dump it on the town, and the town gotta take care of it, okay? And that's what's gonna happen here. So if we go and give him his money, he runs away, 10 years, that road, I don't know what kind of condition it's in, it doesn't have a lot of traffic. But, if something happens, drainage gotta be cleaned or repaired or whatever, we're paying. Taxpayers of Wareham. I don't think that's fair. You know, developers have been doing this for years. And, like I said, this guy's track record's not the best.
One of the options is to get town acceptance of the way, of the road, if it's been sufficiently constructed, and reduce the requirements on the homeowners. Maybe, or maybe that's a way to get the homeowners to join the
Well,
association.
maybe the homeowners don't want it to be a town road. I don't
Could
know,
be.
you know.
I would say he needs to hire himself a land use attorney and make the case for giving him his
yeah.
bond.
You would think that if he was interested in getting his money back, he'd be here to discuss it with us, wouldn't he? I mean, it's difficult to ask
I mean,
somebody a
unless you
pointed
wanna-
question when he's not looking at you.
Yeah.
Unless you want to run it by council to see if we're incorrect in holding it.
I don't think so. The covenant was pretty clear.
The covenant did it list an order of secession for the homeowners association? Did it map it out?
I believe it did.
But it just never got filed.
It wasn't done, yeah. The homeowners association wasn't created. There was a switch to the bond. The covenant was switched to a bond when the first couple of houses were sold, house lots were sold, and it went downhill from there.
He tried to put a homeowners association on record, but the homeowners were never let in on it.
The first house was sold and resold.
This was after.
It's your equipment.
Against the mic.
You're getting as bad as the rest of us. Pull your mic in a little closer.
Majority rules, Bob.
You'll be spitting on it pretty soon.
Yeah. When I went down there 2 years ago, I made an inspection for the purpose of determining whether construction was complete, because he wanted a release of his money. So as is my custom, I looked at the terms of the construction, terms of the covenant, and looked at everything that had to be done. There was some. I think, as I remember it, there were some post lamps that were supposed to be put in there, too. Some houses had them, some didn't. There was a top course of asphalt that needed to be put in. There was berm around the cul-de-sac. There was sidewalk repairs, some other minor things. There might have been some trees, too, as I recall it. There should be a file, a copy of the letter in the file. But as I remember it, when he realized that there was no homeowners association document, I think he tried to put one on record. But the homeowners were never a part of it because they got sold the lots before anything was created.
And some of those had been resold.
Yeah, I don't know the history of all the lots, but clearly there was no homeowners association set up and established before the first lot was sold, which is, I believe, what the terms of the conditions were that, when it was approved. So he hasn't met the conditions of the subdivision the way that it was laid out.
The condition reads as follows. Condition on the covenant, the conditions for the Form C approval in 02. The developer applicant shall be required to establish a homeowners association, HOA, that will be responsible for the maintenance and operation of the approved street light plan and to provide maintenance and operation of the stormwater system, including in any and all retention basins and all other common land within the approved subdivision. The HOA organization will be approved by town council and shall remain in force and operation for the duration of the life of the subdivision. Unfortunately, that apparently wasn't done.
Doesn't sound like
How many people? 5? Give each one $5,000 and make a homeowners association. Take the bond to pay for the rest.
I think if they had a block party, then it would turn out to be a massacre.
So where does that leave them? I mean, you can't create a homeowners association after that.
Only with the cooperation of the homeowners.
Right, you can't force somebody to plot a lot with HOA covenants on it and now accept one.
Yeah. They'd have to agree together.
Which, based on his letter, it sounds like they all thumbed his nose at him.
Yeah. I even wrote a letter on that suggesting it was a condition of the approval of the subdivision. But didn't get any response.
Well, until such time as the road gets in disrepair and they start looking for somebody to fix it.
We'll use that bond.
I would say, how would that kind of leave the money in limbo?
Yeah, I'd have to check with council. I'm assuming the bond is for the construction of the road, not the repair of it. So I'm assuming that we'd have to only hold the money for the
Well,
original construction.
if I'm not mistaken, the top coat's still not on that road, is it, Charlie?
I think it is.
Yeah, I think everything's done except for a couple of post lights.
Well, he had
Fires.
he had some trees that died too, street trees. If you look on that plan, I think that they never made it.
I think he went back and replaced that in anticipation of getting his money back.
But he's gotta play nice with the people. They're all in the same sandbox, right?
Well, they're not, they have the power, the homeowners.
It's not our job to call the homeowners in and make peace, right?
No.
As each one comes on the market, he can buy it back, fix it, and then sell it. Yeah, other than getting some legal determination, I don't see that nothing's changed here.
All right, I'll ask town council to make a recommendation on how to handle the bond and the homeowners association. It was never created.
Very good. Next item is Bay Point Phase 2 and 3. Report on modification.
Yeah, it's been sitting here a while. This is the entrance to the Bay Point Country Club. This is the Phase 1 development in this area here. That's gone through a definitive subdivision site plan review and special permit. This area up in here, this phase 2 and 3. This does not look like the one that was approved. There was a modification to it. I'll point that out, and I wanted your opinion on this as well. This is phase 4, where the, now they can't see it at the table, but that's okay.
It'll change.
This is phase 4, where they're talking about putting an apartment building. And the change that's under discussion, which I wanted to get some clarification on from the board as to whether my opinion is accurate, is the change that's been made in creation of this loop, this finger extending up from the phase 2 and 3, which previously ran, did not have that extension of about 8 or so units.
Of those 8 units, those are new units, right?
No, they're not new units. They're the same number,
They just relocated.
just relocated
From where?
from within phase 2 and 3.
So they're not adding any more units to the project?
No,
they're just
absolutely not.
changing the way-
Same number of units in there.
He just randomly picked them out, so he had a package, he had enough numbers and stuck them up there, or?
No, what he did was he figured out what was selling the best, and the best is the ones that have the nice view of the fairways. And so what he wanted was more good views of fairways for the better value of the homes.
So in other words, this project's gonna be designed to go as the market dictates what it's gonna do?
Yeah, and that's the reason why you had some flexibility in the decision about the type of unit that could be constructed and the setback distances as well. So the flexibility was already built into the decision that
Okay, now the next question I have, the decision we have to make whether we consider it a minor or a major, right?
that's right.
Well,
And my recommendation is it be considered a minor modification, because it's the same number of units, because it's a small portion of the total development parcel, and it does not modify the fairways in the golf course.
time convincing, I think, some of us.
Well, what that does is it also makes a difference in the application that comes before you.
If it's a major, he has to go back through the public hearing process.
That's right.
correct? If it's a minor, he doesn't, he just.
That's
moves on.
correct. What he does is he goes through the public hearing process on the subdivision of land. And in this, there's also going to be the discussion on the sewer system, the wastewater system that gets put in here as well, in the pump station.
Again,
That was part of your subdivision approval of this. Has to be part of your subdivision approval of this phase 2 and 3.
So by putting that extra finger out there, even though you're not adding more houses, it does create another road though, right?
Yeah, driveway in that case.
He's got to come back for public hearing anyway.
Yes.
So why didn't he just include this in the presentation? I don't see that he's saving any time, but I don't see what the difference is.
Well, it doesn't open up the site plan review again. What it does is it just keeps it as a subdivision approval. And it's the same way that you modified the lot lines in phase 1, when they had a better idea of what they were building. They changed those lines to get more flexibility for the units.
By creating that driveway, as you call it, that goes up and services the homes in that finger, does that change the stormwater concerns? Sure.
Adds more impervious surface than you did before.
Right, so the original stormwater engineering is now not consistent with what's actually gonna be placed.
Yeah, and to some degree, even if you didn't have that finger, that's the case, Mike, because the road configuration in phase 2 has changed a little bit, but not to the degree that it
concerns.
Yeah, the density is identical. What he did was he moved those units
The
that would go
setbacks.
in that finger out of the cul-de-sac area where Bay Point Drive is, because he's relocating Bay Point Drive as well.
Oh,
So in order to accommodate that relocation,
Drainage easements.
he had to move the buildings. So he decided to put them up in that
These are
extra
drainage
finger.
easements here. Detention basins.
Well, Ken, give him a key to the building, tell him shut the lights off when he's done. That's what he wants to do, right?
Shut the lights off?
Whatever he wants to do, and just lock the door when he leaves.
Now, you've had lots of review of this project.
Charlie, where Bay Point hooks up with Cahoon. Well, I was gonna ask you, why did he change it like that from what he showed us originally?
Because I think it has something to do with Phase 4 and the apartment building and the parking lots and everything else that's there. That's part of it. But where you see the cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
where you go in Bay Point and then you take that hard right,
Yeah.
that moves a little bit from its present location. And when he moved it, he actually had the layout of the road going over the lots that were in that area, and it wiped out the houses that were around the perimeter of that original location. So whatever houses he lost by doing that, he moved them up into that new projection that's up to the north there. He didn't change the total number in Phase 2, but he's moved them out of where they were.
Is this little sketch the existing?
That's where the proposed would be, I believe, George. That's where the layout line would be.
Well, they show the little roundabout there. So
Yeah,
that
but he's,
looks like-
there's
that looks
also
like
another one.
proposed, and this looks like the existing, maybe?
No, you'll see where that road line has moved over. This is where it is today. It gets shifted this way.
Yeah, but you don't have that, I think this is
But
the
this-
existing, that little fine line there is where Bay Point exists now.
No, it's where this is. Because these are the houses that he was going to have in that area. And by moving it over so that this becomes the layout line, all those lots are lost and they end up here.
The original plan had that little roundabout there? Yeah. Been so long, I forgot. Why is it just Did the Beacon Street, this area here, did that shrink?
The configuration changed, yeah.
It had changed back in earlier, the last time around.
Starboard Drive changed too.
Yeah.
Make it a 9
I'll see,
You keep getting lower and
I'll
lower.
see you
George.
downstairs.
Taking the elevator down?
George has left the building. That'll teach you for planning things.
Well, I feel like I'm sitting at the kids' table. Sit gently.
There's the additional hard top that services those 8 lots. Is that sufficient enough to cause pause?
I don't know what you mean, Mike.
Well.
They can handle the stormwater, if that's what you mean.
Is it, it's 600 feet long, say, for argument's sake, 600 more feet of roadway on the existing stormwater system a sufficient reason to say, hey, let's put the brakes on? Or is it add, an extra
It adds
2%?
It adds extra runoff to whatever area of discharge that they've got designed into it. So you've got to accommodate that. One of the things that, if you look close at the plan, the road is shown there. It has no turnaround. It's one thing I pointed out to them early on.
Just
Right.
dead ends?
once you get a piece of fire apparatus in there or an ambulance, you can't turn it around.
Go over the golf course.
Or
Over the green.
or a wayward resident that went down the wrong road, they'd have to actually use someone's driveway to get turned around.
That's correct. So one of the things I suggested was that if I got to the point of recommending anything to the board, it would be that that be revised enough to include a circle. So you could get a piece of emergency equipment turned around and get out.
Which would probably take out 2 house lots at the end.
Well, they've reconfigured as much as they have. They can push out a little further and put a circle in there.
Well, I would,
They're gonna infringe on the golf course, so you think? No?
Yeah, that's potential when you start to do a roundabout, a turnaround.
That's debatable, maybe.
If it's less than 1,000 feet, he's not required to, right?
You can have a dead-end street up to 1,000 feet, and you're supposed to have a 120-foot circle on the end of any dead-end street.
These aren't streets, though, they are driveways.
Doesn't make any difference. As far as construction's concerned, it's the same thing. You gotta have the physical access in and out.
I'd say, what would the fire department have to say about that?
4-wheel drive golf course.
I mean, if the fire department looked at that to give their recommendation.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so, or else there would have been a turnaround at the end.
Yeah.
It's not to say that you couldn't waive the size of it to some extent. The outside diameter of a standard circle is 100 feet. You might be able to get away with something smaller, but there at least should be something.
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking at 20-foot roadways, just going into driveways where cars are going to be parked. You'd have to back the entire length in order to get out of there.
Yeah, nothing says a circle has to be big enough to spin the ladder truck. But
No.
if you could get the
No.
engine turned around.
To get something turned around, or at least reasonably turned around.
You could combine this and not lose a house lot, have enough room to.
Yeah, you draw it up in a reasonable.
But either
scale.
way, whether it's major or minor, you still gotta do the engineering on it. It's
That's
still gotta
correct.
be reviewed.
And the construction standards will remain the same.
Yeah.
The only thing that, when I did read the special permit that's already out there, there are several sections of the special permit that do refer to the existing plan. So you'd have to take that into consideration. It's going to take a modification of the special permit, no matter if it's minor or major, because you're going to have to refer to the new definition. Right now, you don't have that. You have the existing one that was for the special permit, but without definition, because there's no road layout yet.
So we have to do review and modification anyway. Does it matter whether it's minor or major modification?
He's coming in for a public hearing anyway. I don't know why we couldn't do it all at the same time.
You just advertise each one and hold the two of them together. You've done that before.
I mean, what he relayed was he didn't want to be held up. If it's all gonna happen at the same time, I don't see it holding him up.
Right.
Other than he could walk in next meeting with a minor modification, and he's what, a month away from a public hearing?
Yeah, he still has to go through the public hearing process and get the official approval on the subdivision before he can start building on it anyway.
Yeah, because he hasn't built anything up there yet. There's no infrastructure.
He doesn't have approval on the infrastructure yet.
I would say do it once.
And you mentioned something briefly about the sewer system?
Yeah, the sewer system.
He's not going back to grinder pumps.
No. No, you have to approve that as part of the subdivision construction.
Yeah, he hasn't submitted design plans or anything.
You know what his plan is, Ken, with respect to Phase 4?
He's gonna wait on, see what happens on phase 2 and 3 and then do phase 4.
Well, the only thing that occurs to me is I'm thinking about this whole thing. The existing pump station that's out there is a 4-inch line, as I remember it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then it would go for the second phase, phases 2 and 3, those particular lots would be dumping into the second pump station.
I don't think phase 3, oh, the second pump station, yeah.
Yeah, would dump into the second pump station, which would then go out to Onset Avenue. The effluent from the first pump station would go into the second one, as I recall what they were going to do. Okay. You're not going to have two separate lines out there. You're still going to have one, which would discharge out to Onset Ave. Then he was supposed to go from Onset Avenue down to the South Water Street pump station to get the line off the beach, right?
Mhm.
Without confirmation that the line from, say, the circle to the second pump station and from there down to Onset Avenue is large enough to handle 53 additional apartment units in phase 4, you might want to have some indication as to what that flow would be.
Well, I believe they're gonna replace it. The discharge from first pumping station.
That's correct. But whether or not there was any consideration given to increasing the size of that line.
For all this, for
to
phase
take
4?
53 additional units, I don't know.
Mhm.
Because that line was just looking at the stuff from above.
Right now, it's a force main, goes all the way through.
Right.
And it would continue to be a force main as far as the second pump station. All of the material that's in phase 2 would go gravity to the second pump station, so you don't have to worry about increasing that line, except the fact that you've got now 53 additional units that would be going from the first pump station to the second. You want to be sure that that line is large enough, and knowing that you've got an existing pump station above that that's pushing effluent through a force main to the second pump station. So whatever happens in that 53-unit apartment has got to overcome the pressure in that line, or it's got to be big enough to handle everything. If they upgrade the first pump station to take the 53 additional units, that's all well and good. But you still got to make sure the line from there to the South Water Street pump station is large enough to handle all of that.
So it's a big mystery. We don't know what Mr. Faze got in mind, right?
Not yet.
The calculation should be simple enough to do, to figure out what the flows will be, so that the final size of the line from that second pump station down to Onset Avenue and to South Water will be the right size.
We'll also have Guy Campina weighing in on this as well.
But that's a detail that would have to be discussed. I would think the appropriate way to do it would be through the subdivision of phases 2 and 3.
So it doesn't, repeat again, it doesn't matter if it's a minor or major modification. He's going to have to go through the process of modifying anyway. If we call it a minor modification, is there any loss?
You know my view, Ken.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna set a precedent. If we tell him it's a minor, every time he wants to change it for whatever reason, he's gonna say, well, you said it was a minor before, and we did this and we did that, that's a minor too. I hate setting precedents with certain people because they just take advantage of you.
Just so you know, my concern was that the minor modifications he made here were very, very minor to just those lot lines. To
Yeah,
switch it in.
that wasn't bad at all.
And this was the limit of everything. Whether he owns all of his property or not doesn't make any difference. This arm of it was never a part of the special permit. It's brand new. I would think the clean way to do it will keep that as part of the whole public hearing process and make sure that you dot all the i's and cross the t's. Modify the special permit.
Who paid for it?
That's just,
That way,
Ken and I disagree.
I agree, he's gonna go through the same process either way.
Right.
Let's do it all out front. Not that. So get me going.
You have a lot of history with this, as.
Yeah, it was a long, painful process. And I understand him not wanting to go through that process again, but I think it'll be a lot easier this time. Both sides know what to expect.
You won't be discussing density or setbacks or anything like that. Those things all would stay the same.
Right.
So it's just some of the other details that have to be worked out.
It's stuff we're gonna look at anyway, whether it was major or minor, so
Yeah.
might as well, gotta go through the process, so include it all. You gonna do your roles and responsibilities, or you gonna wait for a full board?
That's up to you. I was going to go over the roles and responsibilities of the planning board based on the Citizen Planner Training Collaboratives session. I thought of this because the last meeting Mike King had said, boy, I'd really like to know a little bit more about.
I'd like to do it with Emmanuel.
Yeah, I was gonna say Emmanuel hasn't.
Showed some interest in that as well.
Yeah, now, I guess this is a good advertisement for those who don't go to the Saturday session, March 16th. That we sent around the advertisement to you out in Worcester, where they'll have a day-long training session for planning board and zoning board members. This would be your opportunity to get some time in on learning the.
Yeah, well, I plan on going.
Then we can wait and decide afterwards, see if Emmanuel goes as well too, because I was thinking he was talking about going. And if, I don't know where Mark is on it, but if we can have that process.
What's the deadline for Worcester? It's already passed?
Oh, it's probably pretty darn close, if not already passed. I think they'll let you sneak in.
I'll have to look at what they're offering again.
But it's well worth it. I've taught at it a couple times.
Teaching this year?
Nope. So we can pick that up later. What I will do though is hand out materials. I'd also ask Charlie to do something as well too, which is probably a little bit different and you won't find at the CPTC sessions, which is taking it from the perspective of the designer and how the plans are created and what goes into those plans and how they, the other side of the table, when those guys are sitting there and they're presenting the plans, what has gone into those plans and what you should be thinking about when you think about trying to be a designer of the, or somebody who's reviewing the project instead. So what I want to do is hand out materials that, this is a summary of materials from the CPTC presentation. Have some extra copies here as well.
That other side of the table is a good idea, because you've probably heard me say before, be careful what you wish for. When we start changing somebody's, or making recommendations to a plan, they usually come back worse than before. So.
I have some another piece of information as well too, which is the a listing from Koppelman and Page, who's not our town council, but is town council to a number of others. Who, when in that has the deadlines as a resource and, for you to know when you're should be getting an extension of time.
Yeah, don't we?
You want one too?
This is one I already saw.
Yeah. So what we can do is after the, I would suggest after the March 16th, the the last hearing in March, maybe what we can do is go over what you learned and fill in any of the blanks or remaining questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
There's questions? Very good. Do we have anything I didn't anticipate? Next meeting,
March 11th, you have the zoning bylaws hearing. Next, March 11th, it'd be good to have a full complement of the board.
is that a holiday?
For someday then.
Eastern Orthodox, beginning of Lent.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to check and see who's Eastern Orthodox.
That's all I have on the agenda. You got a question, Mike?
Motion, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would. I don't know about the rest of you.
Had enough fun tonight.
Is that a second?
That's a second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ken? Meeting's adjourned at 8:35.